Good morning and a very warm welcome to everybody attending today. I want to thank you all for spending your time today with us. And we hope that as well as learning about our groundbreaking new product, you'll be able to learn something more about how plants grow and how Fulvic works in general. So hope you can take something away from that today. My name is Marc Slabber. I'm the MD of Talborne Organics, and I'm going to take you through the presentation today. Just as a reminder, there is a Q&A option, so please place your questions in the chat and one of our team will get back to you. Some of these questions might be very specific to your crop or something like that, so we're not going to have a live questions and answers, but we will either get back to you in the chat or somebody will give you a call or an email after we are done here. So great, thank you. Let's jump into it. So today we are talking about Fulvic. And this is the structure for today. We're going to discuss Future Fulvic and introduce you to it. Then we are going to explain what it is and how it works. Finally, we'll discuss the Fulvic and what makes it a better product, and then how it performs in trials, and finally the product launch. So let's jump into it. But first, something on a little bit of a light-hearted note. Today contains advanced chemistry. I hope you find that funny. I found that to be quite a good one. And the topic today, I think this one is especially true. Every legend has a weakness. For Samson, it was his hair. For Achilles, the heel. But for me, it's the biochemistry, and perhaps other people will appreciate this because it's a very complex topic. But we're not going to go into too much detail. I think this is more just a joke, and let's jump into it. So section 1 is introducing the Future Fulvic product to you. This is a revolutionary form of Fulvic, and it's nature's growth promoter. We'll discuss more. So let's look at the product. It's the purest Fulvic acid. In fact, we call it nature's Fulvic because it is the same Fulvic that you'll get in the ground naturally. A very high concentration of active ingredients. So we have 17% Fulvic content and 2% humic content in a liquid form, which, as far as I know, there's no competition for that. Another first is that it's approved for organic farming. There's a lot of people that would like to use these products but are not allowed to due to them being processed in a way that is not appropriate for organic. But this product is 100% natural, and we will show you a little bit more about that later. So exciting for the organic farmers, but also for any other farmers, just can be used just as well. And a nice thing about this product is that it is environmentally friendly. Of course, as with all of our products, it's about doing the right thing, not just for the farmers or for ourselves, but also for the planet. We call it a win-win-win, and the low environmental footprint of this is actually excellent. One of the reasons why we decided to bring this product in is it's something very special and very unique. We'll jump more into that later. Just looking at the analysis of the product, I mentioned the Fulvic and the humic substances. There's also a little bit of boron and a bit of iron in the product, just naturally. It's not something we add. And interestingly, you'll see it as a pH of 8.2. So some people might be asking me then, well, why are you calling it a Fulvic acid if it has a alkali pH? So that's something that we'll also discuss. And yes, it is registered Group 3 product. And let's move on. Second section. So here's where the chemistry comes in. What is it and how does it work? So what are humic and fulvic substances and how do they work? On the right over there, we have two pictures. The one at the top, that is a humic molecule, and at the bottom, it is a fulvic molecule. So what are these molecules? Where do they come from? They come from the natural process called humification. And humification is basically the breakdown of organic carbohydrates, protein, fats, and all other organic substances. And this happens naturally where microbes break down these sorts of organic matter into smaller compounds. As the compounds get smaller, they become humic compounds, and then even smaller, they become fulvic compounds. The humic molecules are therefore quite a bit larger than the fulvic, and for that reason, they're better suited to soil application. Whereas fulvic is a smaller molecule, and it can be used in the soil and as a foliar application. So let's look at that in some more detail and ask ourselves, how does it work? As the slide says, it's a package full of benefits. One thing that's interesting about fulvic is that there are multiple use cases and benefits of the product. So here are 6 of them, and we'll go into them in a little bit more detail. Unfortunately, we can't go into tremendous detail, as I know a lot of people are very busy. So, of course, reminder, if you have any questions, you can contact us, and we'd love to share this in more detail if you'd like. So, number 1, what does it do? It's a natural chelator, a very powerful natural chelator. Let's jump into explaining what that means and how this works. So in there, you start seeing the chemical structure of the product. You've got basically a molecule which has what are called functional groups on the end of it. And these functional groups are negatively charged in many cases, other ones positively charged. And what that means is that they will attract cations in the case of the negatively charged functional groups. And different functional groups, of which there are many, attract different cations. So as you can see in the bottom there, iron, copper, zinc, ammonium, potassium, calcium, magnesium, they're all cations that are attracted to this fulvic molecule. You can see it again on the right in this other picture. That is, let's say, a very layman way of visualizing a fulvic acid molecule. And you can see all the things that are bound to it. We call it adsorption. Something else that is quite interesting that maybe some people don't know is that fulvic also has a high anion exchange capacity. People like to talk about CEC a lot. You hear about it a lot. But what about AEC? And that's something interesting, is that when you have anion exchange capacity, that means that it can also bond with anions. So examples of those are your phosphates, your sulfates, nitrates, many others. But fulvic has the dual role of not just bringing in cations, but also assisting with bringing in anions and making them mobile and getting them into the plant. Also carrying on talking about the chelation properties, many of you might have seen this sort of chart before, which is the availability of different nutrients at different pH levels. What we know these days is that maybe this is a little bit old-fashioned in the way of thinking that the soil pH determines nutrient availability. We now know that microbes have a big role to play in terms of their function in making nutrients available. So although that is new, well, not new, but relatively new knowledge, this is still valid. So you should have a neutral pH as far as possible to avoid deficiencies, specifically your trace elements, which we've written there as TE. So as it says, 30% of the arable soil in the world is often alkaline, and that means that you have deficiencies of elements specifically like iron, boron, manganese, and others. And without these crucial elements, you can't have a healthy plant, you can't have chlorophyll, you can't have photosynthesis. So they are just as important as your major nutrients, your NPKs, is these minor and trace elements here. So the next point, how does it work, is it increases the chlorophyll and photosynthesis. Basically, the low molecular weight of the molecule helps it to bind with other cations, which means it penetrates through the leaf of the plant and then it gets in very quickly. And once it's in the plant, it also mobilizes nutrients that are otherwise less mobile, for example, calcium, boron, zinc, and iron. Some other short benefit of it is that it adsorbs and renders harmless the pesticides that can remain on a plant if you are applying pesticides. So that's another benefit of it. Another one is drought tolerance. I think this is becoming more and more important. Flood and too much water, too little water, too much heat, too little heat. These are all challenges that we're facing at the moment. So studies definitely show that fulvic acids enhance drought tolerance. And the reasons that that works is to do with glutathione metabolism and the flavonoid biosynthesis, which is part of the antioxidant defense system that plants have. It's a very complicated topic, so we don't have time to go into that today, but it has great benefits in terms of drought tolerance of the plant. Another benefit is seed germination. Of course, we all know we want uniform seed emergence, and this helps a lot, especially in situations where there's late seeding. So it increases the seeding, the germination, and it's a big benefit for people that are planting from seed. The fulvic can be applied either to the soil to get this benefit, where the seeds will naturally take the benefit of the fulvic in the soil, or you can coat the seeds prior to planting. The next one is the stimulation of root growth. And this, I must be honest, is where I start running out of understanding, and the biochemistry starts blowing in my mind when I read the information like the signal transduction cascade via NO messengers to elongate the apical dominance, and it's very complicated science, and we won't get into that today. But the studies are there to show how fulvic substances actually do this and lead to plant growth. So in a sense, they are, as well as being chelators, they are also stimulants for plant growth. Another very interesting and beneficial effect is the detoxifying effect. And what this means is heavy metals are made insoluble when they bind with fulvic and humic molecules. As you can see over there, cadmium, lead, mercury, etc., they can all be made insoluble. So they might remain in the soil or in the plant, but they actually have a limited or no effect, which is what you want. Another interesting thing is that the fulvic and humic substances can also help with aluminium toxicity, where that is a problem. Aluminium toxicity can be very serious, so that's another good reason to use fulvic acid. The enhancement of microbial activity, again, you could have a whole webinar or a whole day talking about this, but just highlighting a few points here is that it's a carbon source, which the microbes like, causes them to flourish. It helps improve the soil structure. By doing so, you can get better water retention and aeration. Also good to reduce your disease pressure, which are based on, let's say, anaerobic conditions. Chelation of nutrients, not just for the plant, but actually for the microorganisms too, because microbes need to eat as well. So when the elements are nicely chelated, the microbes can actually absorb them better too, which leads them to flourish. Detoxification of the soil, as we mentioned, that obviously helps the microbes, and stimulating root exudates to give them more food and increasing enzyme activity. So lots of benefits of fulvic, and I hope this has been interesting. I have put down the sources here if you want to take a screenshot and go and read up. There's some fascinating information out there. Very, very new. Well, not entirely new. We've known about fulvic for a long time, but we're starting to understand how it works and how important it is now. Last slide about chemistry, and it's a fun one. What can you call an amino acid? I think we must just cut this. I just said something. I messed up my punchline. I'm going to start the slide again. Last slide about chemistry. What do you call an acid with an attitude? Of course, it's an amino acid. And never trust an atom, because they make up everything. Some light-hearted fun for the day. All right, moving on to the third section. What makes Future Fulvic a better product? So here we're going to compare it with other fulvic and humic products, and you can learn a little bit more about what makes this product truly unique and different. Right. So it is a completely natural phyto-fulvic compound, and I'll explain to you how it differs and where it comes from in a follow-up slide. As I mentioned, it's got a very high level of fulvic and humic substance, so it's highly concentrated, which means a lower application rate per hectare. It's approved for organic farming, and it's in a liquid form, which is very easy and ready to use. And it has a very good synergy with other fertilizers and other agri inputs, even herbicides, pesticides, and insecticides, and fungicides. You can use it to enhance the effect of all of those products as well. Let's go into that in some detail. So here you're looking at a big open cast mine, which is a leonardite coal mine. And this is where the majority of fulvic and humic substances come from. And this is how they're produced, is essentially they mine the coal or the leonardite, and then they do an extraction with a very strong alkali like sodium hydroxide or potassium hydroxide. And then the pH is adjusted with hydrochloric or nitric acid to obtain your final fulvic solution. However, because of the high concentrations of sodium and potassium, it's difficult to obtain pure fulvic acids by this process. Sometimes you'll end up with something known as fulvate instead of a fulvic. How is this different to our product? Our product is entirely different because it is extracted using ionic exchange technology from groundwater. So as the groundwater is pumped up, it is separated and cleansed. The finished water will go into the drinking system, the drinking water system, and the fulvic, natural fulvic, will remain behind. So this natural fulvic is essentially the fulvic that has drained from the soils and gone into the subterranean water system and aquifers. And from there on, it's extracted when they are taking out the water. So that means that this is pure natural fulvic acid. It hasn't fossilized and then been extracted again. It is purely natural, so it's not denatured. And also the process means that the particle size are incredibly small, so no chances of clogging or a blocking of irrigation equipment. So as you can see, completely different product and process to get a natural phyto-fulvic. So, of course, if you want to do the comparison, you can see the environmental impact that the one has, where you're basically cleaning water, and the other one is you're mining. And, of course, we know which one is better for the planet there. The product is highly concentrated and pure, as I mentioned, with very high levels of humic compounds, humic and fulvic compounds. The competitor products typically contain between 5 to 8% fulvic content. So you can see how much stronger the products are there. And then something that's not entirely well understood, but I'm sure we'll find out about it more in time, is that sometimes it's difficult to compare fulvic and humic products purely on the label. Firstly, there are different ways to measure fulvic and humic compounds, and depending on how you measure it, you'll get different results. But more important than that is that we are seeing that even if you have the same amount of humic and fulvic content, that the products behave differently. And I think the reasons for that are still to be understood. But what we know with our product is that it is a natural product. So it is the same fulvic that is in the soil naturally that has arrived there through the decomposition of composted material. So that's why we call it nature's fulvic. It's not extracted from coal or anything like that, which we believe means it is more effective. Apart from that, what I mentioned, point 1 and 2 there, is so much stronger, so you use a lot less. And that also has its benefit in terms of the cost effectiveness. And yeah, you save money. That's ultimately what we want to do, is we want to ensure that the farmers' input costs and the growers' input costs are minimized at the same time that the yields are optimized. And this is an excellent product for achieving that. As mentioned, it's approved for EU and US and even Japanese organic standards, and it's available in commercial scale. First of its kind, one of the first of its kind in the world, and I'm happy to say that it will now be available in South Africa too. It has very low heavy metal content. Of course, you can imagine when you extract ores and you acid and alkali treat them that you end up with a higher level of potential contaminants. Not the case with our natural Phyto-fulvic. And then it's safe and very easy to use. So it's a very forgiving product. You can use in various quantities. It's not going to burn or damage or do harm to you or to the people that are working with it. So much so that Fulvic is actually becoming very popular for human consumption. And if you Google Fulvic, you'll see all the benefits that it has to humans and animals. So the same way that it helps mobilize nutrients for plants, it does the same for humans, and in some cases they've even shown that it can stop cancers. So it's a very interesting product. Perhaps go and have a sip of some Fulvic that you buy from your local pharmacy and then see if that helps you. Great. Perfect synergy with our products, and I think this is very important to understand, is that Fulvic does work by itself, but where it works best is in synergy with other fertilizers. Makes your fertilizer go further. So for example, with our Nourish range of liquid fertilizers, you can actually increase the uptake of the nutrients by close to 30%. And the Nourish fertilizers are already very uptakeable because of the fact that they contain amino acids. So you can actually remove a little bit of your, let's say if you have a 100% mix, you can put 10% Fulvic and 90% Nourish into your mix, and it will make your Nourish go a lot further. That goes for foliar as well as for in soil, but in particular for foliar. And also with the Vita range of solid fertilizers, by putting the Fulvic into the soil, you're going to help mobilize the nutrients in the soil, and you're going to increase the health of the soil. The microbial aspects will all help to break down the Vita fertilizers, and it's going to really get those nutrients into the plants. We recommend between 30 to 50 liters per hectare per year, and this is really, we'll go into some more recommendations later, but that should be enough that you can, especially in less healthy soils, that you can really get the benefits over time when the soils naturally contain more organic matter, then you use less and less. Okay, talking about the products, how does it perform in trials? I have a lot of trials here today, trial data, but I know that it can get boring, so I'm going to really do my best to skip over it. But again, feel free to take in and to take a screenshot or whatever you need if you find it interesting or it's your crop. So looking at the plant growth aspect, here we're looking at a trial done in South Africa in Kempton Park on maize and beans, where after 6 weeks after emergence, the weight of the top growth and the roots were measured versus the controls, where the control contained fertilizer but just no Fulvic. And you can see a huge increase in both the top growth and the root mass of the products or of the plants that were treated with Fulvic. Pretty substantial. Lettuce, this was a trial done at our factory with various varieties of lettuce, and using the Vita Veg 634 as a base fertilizer, and then adding on treatment number 2 Nourish as well, and then treatment number 3 Nourish and Future Fulvic. And you can see over there versus the control a 36% increase with the 712 Nourish as well as the Future Fulvic. So very nice results over there. And that is the average over 4 different varieties of lettuce, up to 36% increase. Take a crop like onions. So this was trialed in the Netherlands by Delphi, which you might know. That's a very respected research institution. And over there, the application of Fulvic led to a increase of 12.7% additional yield in the large onions, and that's approximately €700. So call that 14,000 Rand per hectare return on investment. So a good result on onions there. On pasture grass, looking at the yield as well as the protein content, very important for your dairies. Over there, the benefit was something like a 7% increase in the actual yield, as well as a 10% increase in the protein content. So that's a win for all the livestock farmers. If you can, it leads to another extra €180 per hectare return on investment. And you don't need to use a lot. Small quantities go a long way with Fulvic. I think that's something that's also where it differs from fertilizers, is you don't need to use so much. It has a very low cost, but a very high return on investment. Looking at pears, over here, looking at the yield as well, you can see the yield was up by 8%. And that's a massive ROI increase of €2,500, so call it 50,000 Rand a hectare, by getting an 8% increase in yield, as well as the number of fruits per tree also went up. Something a bit different, also still sticking with pears, but now looking at cation uptake. Here looking at iron and calcium, you can see the amount of uptake in the plant versus the standard, the control, up to 60% more iron and up to 28% more calcium. That's a very big result, and can help a lot where you have iron and other cation deficiencies, especially if you have compromised soils where it's not easy to get the nutrient that is in the soil up into the plants. Another slide on cation uptake. So this one is done across a variety of plants. This test conducted in Germany. And over there you can see as the amount of foliar application of Fulvic increases, so does the calcium in the plant, up to a maximum of 139, so 39% above the control. That's a very big increase. And if people know how important calcium is in plants, especially for making strong cells and making resilient plants, that's a huge benefit there. Other ones that were looked at were also iron and zinc, boron. These all increase in the plant tremendously as you increase the amount of Fulvic. Another aspect of the soil, slightly different here, is the buffering effect that it has. For example, the pH, that graph on the right, you can see how the pH has actually come down as the Fulvic has been applied. And you can use this to buffer the soil very effectively, especially if you have alkaline soils. And on the graph below that one is the soil organic matter percentage. So you can see while you add Fulvic over time, you're going to increase the organic matter percentage. That's also going to boost the microbial activity, which in turn is going to make use of your root exudates, and it makes a very virtuous cycle over there to increase your organic matter, which is a big challenge in many soils in South Africa. So very important to do that. And here's a slide on the comparison with a traditional fulvic acid powder. So this one is done in Turkey. For information, the green bars there, Nutrifil, that is Future Fulvic by a different name. And you can see that the iron uptake in the leaf and the roots went up tremendously after treating with Fulvic, as well as the fresh weight of the spinach in this case. So I think you all know how important iron is in spinach and how much it constitutes in the spinach. So up to 42% increase compared to dry fulvic acid. So as I was saying earlier, it's difficult to compare these products on the label alone. Sometimes you have to do a trial and see for yourself how it looks. And from all the information we have and our own trials, we can definitely say that we think that it's a very, very good product in the liquid form that we have it. High-level summary then on the trials. So it's been successful around the world as well as in South Africa. It's a relatively new product. Having said that, it's been around for 5 years, and there's been tremendous success on a variety of crops around the world, and I think you're going to see more and more of these products in the future. Importantly, I mentioned it earlier, but there is a significant return on investment by increasing the growth, yield, and plant health while reducing the input costs. And that's what we're after. In the end of the day, we don't apply these products for fun. We do it because there's a reason, and that reason is normally a business case, and that means we can return on the investment. That's what Talborne stands for. And if our products don't give you a return on investment, then we shouldn't be in business. But we are, and we have been for 25 years. And we believe that these products are going to make our product offering even better for our farmers so that they can maximize and optimize their businesses. Last section, which is just more information about the product, where to buy it and the business case in terms of using it. So looking at the business case, I've touched on the return on investment here, but to give you an idea, the Fulvic price is approximately, Future Fulvic price is approximately 50 Rand a litre, and that makes it one of the most competitive products on the market, especially considering how concentrated it is, up to 3 times higher than other products. There are some slightly higher price if you take a 5 litre or 20 litre, but the 1,000 litre price is also then slightly lower. So we're just saying on average work on about 50 Rand, and hopefully that will come down in time as well. You use less, I think I've mentioned that, but that's a clear benefit. As an example, for an annual application, you can use between 20 to 50 litres. Sometimes you'll use less, it really depends on the crop, but I'm just trying to give people an idea. So let's say you can use between 1,000 Rand to 2,500 Rand per hectare per year. When you're talking about yield increases from 7 to 30%, it more than pays for that 1,000 Rand or 2,000 Rand per hectare, 10, 20-fold in some cases. So it's all about return on investment, and the product brings that in spades. Another side benefit is that a healthier plant will also be less susceptible to your pest and disease pressure. So that will give you a saving, meaning reduced interventions in terms of pest and disease control. And many other benefits that I think you'll understand in terms of having healthy soils. Just a quick one on the application rates. So here we're talking about seeds, field application, row application. There are so many different ways to use Fulvic, whether you use it together with other products, whether you use it as a standalone. But these are some guidelines. It's nice thing about this product is it's very compatible with a lot of products because it's not so, it's fairly neutral in terms of pH. It's not going to react like a lot of other highly acidic Fulvic products will do. So it's very easy to work with and compatible. We would advise not using it together with copper or sulfur containing fungicides. The reason for doing that is you need to be careful of systemic fungicides. When you then chelate them, then you can actually have a greater impact in the plant than what you would perhaps like. So you can actually induce toxicity. So just a caution to not use it with those types of fungicides. But of course, reach out to us if you do require advice. We are competent and trained to assist you with the application rates and how to use the product. Just as a reminder for you that might be new to Talborne or haven't heard from us in a while, we've been growing steadily and our footprint is around the country. The green dots are where our agents and distributors are. Our factory is still in Bronkhorstspruit in Gauteng, and we have depots around the country. And we are working with a lot more distributors now than ever before. So you'll be able to find our products, and if not, we'll be able to source them and send them to you directly. If you require finance, just as a reminder, there are many trading partners that we have, some of them listed below amongst others, but you should be able to find somebody that you can work with if you require finance or if you want to buy it at a local store. You should be able to contact these companies and they will be able to help you. And that's everything today. So a big thank you for your attention. I hope you found this interesting. It's a very big and complicated subject, so you really can't get into too much detail. There's so many uses and so many benefits for Fulvic, and I think I'd like to invite you all to give it a try. That's the only way to know. So thank you once more, and enjoy the rest of your day. We will respond to your Q&A either during the course, or we will get back to you. So thank you very much. Take care. And that's everything for today. So thank you again for your attention. We really appreciate you being here. Fulvic is an incredible product, and we are very excited to get it out into the market and for our farmers and growers to see the benefits of it. And we really encourage you to try it and see for yourself the power of our natural growth promoter. Thanks for your time, and take care. Bye-bye.